From MTN, the Montana Television Network, this is Face the State.
Good morning and welcome to Face the State. Like many Western states, Montana has an initiative process that allows the voters to make changes directly to the Constitution and to statute. This fall, one of the initiatives on the ballot, 182, directly asks whether voters want to change Montana's laws concerning medical marijuana. We've brought together two folks to discuss both sides of the issue here on Face the State. Katie Mazurek, who supports the initiative and is a spokesperson for the effort, and Steve Zabawa, founder of Safe Montana, an organization opposed to the initiative. Katie and Steve, thanks for dropping by the studio today. Really appreciate you guys coming in. So let's just start the conversation and ask both of you. Katie, so why do you support this initiative? Why is it necessary? And then Steve, why don't you think it's necessary and why do you oppose it? Let's just start with Katie and then we'll go to Steve.
Okay. I'm actually an unlikely candidate, I think, for medical marijuana to be a spokesperson at this point. I grew up in the 80s and 90s when Say No to Drugs and the big war on drugs was going on, and we were taught that marijuana was bad and had no redeeming qualities and was a gateway drug, and only kind of losers and rejects were using marijuana. Flash forward 20 years, I'm a 33-year-old mother of two. I'm a practicing attorney in Bozeman, and I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer in February. The issues that I'm facing with my cancer, I've had 15 rounds of chemo, I have 3 surgeries ahead of me and radiation still. I have about a handful of pills that I was having to take, particularly when I was on chemotherapy. And so I was suffering through pain, nausea, wasting when you don't have enough to eat because you don't feel good enough to eat. And what was prescribed to me were opioids and a handful of other things. And so medical marijuana came into my vision through my oncologist and a social worker with the hospital. Mm-hmm. And I started to quickly learn and understand that the fear rhetoric around marijuana was not at all what it seems. And there are huge medical benefits to it. And so in my case, the first time I used it was in Washington when I didn't have pain medication that satiated a severe pain episode that I was having. So it's recreational use there. We were able to just go down and get some. And it was very neatly run, very cleanly run. I took it. I started having symptom relief, unlike I had experienced with the opioids or the anti-nauseas or anything, and realized that this would be something that would help me despite my own prejudices against it and the stigma that I had carried against it for so long. So now I'm in a position, unfortunately, that with Senate Bill 423 that's in effect, patients like me who do not have providers basically do not have access to medical marijuana. I can't grow it myself. I don't have the capacity. I don't have the space. I don't have the time, and I travel for my health care. And I-182 came up as an option that is a safe and reasonable way for very sick people like me to get the medication that they need.
Steve, you founded Safe Montana, and you are taking a position opposed to I-182. Why do you think 182 is a bad idea?
Well, the Safe Montana was set up with families across the state, and we've got a great contingency of families, just Democrats, Republicans, just nice families that do not want pot shops on their corner. Okay, so that's our base. We're against recreational marijuana, not what she's talking about. So she's talking about medical marijuana. I voted in favor back in 2004 for medical marijuana. I just thought there would be normal medicinal protocol rules handling it. And what we found is anywhere from 60 to 90% of the marijuana going out of these medicinal marijuana shops over the last 5 years has been recreational. So there's been a lot of in-state traveling caravans, a lot of out-of-state traveling caravans. It blew up from 500 green cards to 30,000 green cards when everybody looked the other way. Our Attorney General looked the other way, the people at the United States level looked the other way, and all of a sudden everybody came in from every state to sell their marijuana and grow their marijuana here. And all the underground marijuana came above ground in the form of medical marijuana. So the one thing that's nice about this is I've been studying it now for 6 years, and I know that there's relief through Deaconess, through Billings Clinic, for people that are in late-stage cancer patients, similar to Katie. So I'm in favor of, see right now her oncologist can issue a prescription that can be paid for by her insurance card rather than going to the medical marijuana shop and paying cash. Now they have an organic product that works good for her, which is great. And then there's the other product is a synthetic THC, and it comes in pill form, and now it comes in a liquid form. And so I've talked to both of the oncologists there, and sometimes the pill works, sometimes the liquid works, sometimes the green card system works. So it depends on the person and what's going on. If you got anorexia for AIDS, it's an appetite enhancer. Everybody knows when you smoke pot or you get in marijuana, it actually enhances your ability to put weight back on, especially if you're going through chemo. Chemo is a brutal process. My sister went through it, and I don't wish it on anybody, so I feel for her. So what we need to do is be able to stop the nausea, and they've got great nausea products, medical marijuana does. And they've been through the FDA. In other words, pharmaceutical companies have come together and are testing medical marijuana now and are putting it through the system. That was not the case 5 years ago. There was only one product there. Now there's 5 products. And I envision 10 or 15, 20 products as they pass the testing. Right now, she's taking medicine that she doesn't know if it's truly effective and if it's truly safe, because it's not been human tested what she's taking. So we believe in human testing, we believe in a prescription, we believe in a pharmacist that has 8 years of training, we believe in a surgeon or an oncologist that's got 13 years of training, and that should be the coordination with the person that needs the medical marijuana. The current system has this I-182 is terrible on about 15 different accounts. It's a very loose written. So the original founders of this were Chuck Campbell and Jesse Campbell with Montana Cannabis Industry Association. Now they just got busted for having 1,100 plants, and they were running too much recreational out of their shops. They were called Montana Buds. It's the largest medical marijuana shop in the state. Now this happened this last week, so this is serious business. They're looking at 10 years to life for what they did, and they'll have to work through that. So my point is that I-182 is not the right solution. SB 423 was designed to squeeze the recreational piece out, still allow patients to get their medicine and get it down to really true medicine.
So a couple, first real quick, you are not opposed to the notion of medical marijuana. You are comfortable with the existing rules. You don't want to go back to you don't agree with the changes that I-182 supports.
I-182 is a smorgasbord for a pot shop. You just go look at no one announced police visits. Anybody can be an actual bud tender. You know, they don't have to have any clinical training. They've got they are improved licensing, which is good, and they did a little bit of inspection as far as what's in the actual, it does have mites in there, how much THC. So those are the 2 improvements that they made on SB 423. What they went backwards on is that you can have in-state traveling doctors again. Instead of having a limit of 25 patients, they can do as many as they want. There's 3 doctors in this state. One's got 4,000, the other one's got 3,000, the other one's got 3,000. So people like Katie come in, they spend $200 to get the green card, then they spend $75 up at the state to get the green card. Then if they want to grow it at their house, they spend another $50. So it's a very expensive process, the green card system. I think it's a very antiquated system. It was there to get the product out there initially, but now the FDA's open-minded. They're testing for PTSD with smoking the marijuana right now. There's lots of good stuff going on. There's epilepsy, multiple sclerosis medicine, cancer, pain medicine now, and that's organic that's being tested that comes in a nasal spray rather than smoking it. So we're against smoking it, growing it at your house. We just want common sense put into this deal. So.
Lots of things to address. Katie, I'm going to see what you want to address with there, but I guess the first thing I want to ask you is, in terms of your situation now, do you have access to marijuana as Steve suggested?
Right, and Steve, I'm going to ask you not to comment on my medical care or what you may understand I do or do not do. I can explain to everyone here that I do not have a card because I do not have a provider, so I am not using. That would be a criminal offense for me, and that's the problem right now with SB 423 the way it is. If we do not enact 182, people like me who are legitimately suffering, and contrary to what Steve wants to say, that there are prescription medications out there designed to help me with the issues that I'm facing, but they're not perfect, and some of them don't work, and some of them have serious, dangerous side effects like opioids. So the bottom line is, no, I do not have a card right now. I am not using, and so my options are to either be a criminal, which I will not do, move out of state, or hope that 182 passes, or I guess I could try to grow it in my house, which I have fake plants in my front yard, and so growing something as delicate and sophisticated as marijuana for the exact strand and strain that I need is way beyond my comprehension set right now.
Okay. Steve, I'm going to ask you this. When asked about this question, Greg Gianforte's campaign spokesman said that, like many other drugs that are used for medicinal purposes, he believes that marijuana should be legal only when its use is prescribed and monitored by a physician, and also that should be basically have to get it from a pharmacist. So let me ask you this: in terms of regulations for medical marijuana, your argument is that number one, it should only be prescribed by a physician. Should a pharmacist be involved in this process as well? Yes or no?
Yes, absolutely. Do you want someone with no clinical training? What if she's pregnant or she's got whatever the issues are, other issues in her body? That bud tender doesn't know those things. They don't know how everything interacts. They're not trained for that. They need to go to pharmacy school and get 4 years and 2,000 hours of clinical training to make sure that they're coordinating with the doctor who does know what's going on with that patient. So we just believe just normal medicinal pain. Our biggest problem in this deal, I feel for her, because we would like to have 15 or 20 products through the system now, sitting on the CVS shelf on the corner, and being able to be handed out and paid for by her insurance card rather than cash out of her pocket. That's what we're fighting for as far as the long-term solution. Now, how do we get there? SB 423 just went into effect September 1. I mean, a couple weeks ago. And everybody's reorganizing themselves as far as getting with their different providers, and the market's going to adjust. I believe there's plenty of providers. I don't believe that you can't get it. I believe if you really call and go out and around and we can find a provider for you if you're looking for the organic medicine. It's too soon to be able to say you can or can't get it. People are just adjusting their businesses as we speak. The model's changed.
You mentioned a couple of marijuana derivatives. So, Katie, one of the things that one of those derivatives is called Marinol, right? Mm-hmm. What's the cost of medical marijuana compared to Marinol, for example? Do you know?
Never tried Marinol. My oncologist does not find it to be effective. People have died using Marinol. It is a synthetic form of a organic product, and there are issues with it. And when I know that something like medical marijuana that's easy and accessible and safe, the human endocannabinoid system interfaces with cannabis in a way that it cannot be lethally toxic to a human being, unlike most of the other medications, honestly, that I'm prescribed. And so it's not that there aren't other options out there. It's that this is the best option. And also that I am a sick person who wants to make choices about my health care, about what's going to work for me, and not have somebody dictate to me what I can and cannot do to improve my quality of life when I'm in the fight of my life.
When you use medical marijuana, you have one of the good things it does is that it increases your appetite. Mm-hmm. Do you experience pain relief from that as well?
Absolutely. So pain relief is the huge one. There's an anti-anxiety element to it, and then obviously the anti-nausea as well. And I just want to be clear and kind of circle back on the pharmacist issue. That sounds really good, but I think it's a disingenuous lead, because Senate Bill 423 that we have now, if we do not enact 182,
right,
that doesn't push us towards pharmacy. That could be a 10, 20, 50-year process for the federal government to deschedule or reschedule marijuana, get the testing in place, and then make it prescribable. So it's a disingenuous argument just for someone like me who's suffering now to say, we just want it to be available through your pharmacist and regulated. The regulations that 182 puts in place, like the independent lab testing, like the unannounced visits, I feel very much protects somebody like me. When purchasing a product, I can know much more about its purity and its potency than what exists right now. And so that's my concern. And then we also have somebody who's touting pharmaceutical use who ran over $100,000 of his own money into a complete repeal of any marijuana, any medical marijuana in this state. And so to me, it's an insincere position for him to take.
I'll let you respond, Steve, and then I'm going to ask you a question. So go ahead, if there's something you wanted to respond to what Katie said.
Well, Katie's got some good points. We believe in medical marijuana. Now, she's taken medicine that's never been human tested. It's been in our system for 12 years, and I can't find one person with any set of backup data that says it's safe, okay? So would you take medicine? Now, there's 2,300 physicians in the state of Montana, according to the association. 200 of them have actually written a green card at one time, and basically there's 3 that do it, all right? Nobody else can do it because of malpractice insurance. You can't give medicine to someone that hasn't been human tested. The malpractice insurance isn't going to do it. The hospitals don't want to mess with it in general. All right. So now we're getting some breakthroughs at the FDA. We're getting some breakthroughs with local doctors in the oncology department at Billings Clinic and Deaconess, and we're moving in the right direction. We need to put pressure on Greg Gianforte, Bullock, Tester, Zinke, and our Steve Daines to push and get more money at the FDA level to move more of these products through the system. They have figured out a way to test the components and derivatives of marijuana. And that's why they've got all these. GW Pharmaceutical, the organic plant, CBD, and the THC, which is proving very effective for epilepsy, okay, and for MS, and for cancer patients for pain. And then that's being the right thing. Those are the good things. So we're in favor of all that. We need to move the clock up. Katie's 100% correct. SB 423 needs a chance to breathe and see if it actually does. She's saying something that she doesn't know one way or another. I don't know how it's going to work out with providers and so forth. Is it 90% recreation? Then we have enough providers. Is it 60%? Well, how about half of the medical marijuana people go to the regular oncologist and go through the pharmacy program? Because that's available to them also right now. And there's a lot of people that do that, and it works very effective. There's a lot of people I know. Vince Ritchie's wife, one of the House District people in Laurel, his wife went through the process of medical marijuana, and she couldn't stand it because of the bud tenders, and then also the effect that it did to her. She couldn't handle it because a lot of people have psychosis, and marijuana will throw you if you're not careful. So, that's the negative of medical marijuana, is that everybody's different, and sometimes it works well for them and they can handle the high. Others can't handle it. Some are designed not to do any of the high. So some of the CBD medicine is very good, doesn't have any of the high in there. And it's helping people on healing themselves on their skin and so forth. So there's a lot of good stuff out there. We need to get it through the FDA, get it so it's through the deal. We do not need pot shops on our corner. The problem here is that, you got 1 or 2% of the population in the state of Montana that has late stage cancer, has epilepsy, MS, these different things that are out there. Do we expose 98% of our population to recreational pot going out on our corners to help the 1 or 2%? Or do we find a good piece of legislation in the 17th session that brings these two sides together and does not have a loosely written law like this is? This is a terrible law.
But why do we have to involve the pharmaceutical industry whatsoever through the FDA? For example, I go to my doctor, I have trouble sleeping, my doctor says, take melatonin. Melatonin hasn't gone through an FDA process. It's a natural substance. I can go to the Target and purchase it. Why is it beneficial to involve the FDA in this at all? And in fact, that's just going to increase the cost of the substance and basically make it more difficult to get it. Whereas the situation with the medical marijuana in 182, you could get it a lot faster, and it wouldn't increase the cost much at all.
Great question, David. The negative effects of recreational marijuana are Schedule 1. That's up there with heroin, ecstasy, any of the other ones that are Schedule 1, all right? So if it was rescheduled, it would go into Schedule 2. which is the same as where meth is at and so forth. So Schedule 2 would not allow anybody to do it recreational. It is a very highly addictive thing. If you read the Sesame bottle that's been through the training, it says marijuana, THC, is highly addictive. It doesn't say that it's just habitual maybe. It's highly addictive. 9% or 10% of the population that smokes marijuana are addicted to it. And then that changes their whole life for the rest of their life, their family makeup, everything. So we're not in favor of anything that hurts the family. We are in favor of anybody that's sick that needs it to be able to have access to it, and that's what SB 423 was. That was passed by the supermajority of the House and the Senate back in May of 2011. And then just recently in 2014, the opposition brought a repeal bill to SB 423, and that went down in flames also, 57 to 43. There's no appetite for a recreational pot, and there's a big appetite for strong regulation on medical marijuana. They want to provide it, so let's come up with a good set that takes care of all the things that we brought up so far that aren't right with this bill. This bill is a terrible piece of legislation.
How do you respond to those allegations? I mean, do you think it's useful to move to Schedule 2 and have it go through the FDA? I mean, how would you respond to that, or some of the other things?
No, I think
Zabawa said?
what's Schedule 1, Schedule 2, that is so far away from reality and where we are right now. It's taking us away from the actual issue, which is 182 today. We're not going to solve the Schedule 1, Schedule 2 problem anytime soon, and we are not going to be looking at pharmaceutical medical marijuana anytime soon. What voters are having to face is whether or not they believe 182 is an improvement on Senate Bill 423, and I do for the following reasons. First, it takes away that 3-patient minimum that a provider can provide for.
So we could have more.
You can go back to having a dispensary that provides for several people. What's nice about that is that me, a sick person, can go and buy what I need and also get expert information and expert care in growing that product. 182 also provides the unannounced visits by the DPHHS, which is the governing body who will be responsible for this pot shops on the corner discussion is disingenuous again, because already in the language we know that they cannot be near schools, they cannot be near churches, they cannot be in areas that would do harm to the well-being of the public or the businesses in the area. They have to comply with local ordinances. So that's on the state level, and then we have to look at our cities to come up with local ordinances on where they feel comfortable putting marijuana dispensaries. We do have, law enforcement does have the right to come and inspect the distributors. We have rules on who can become a dispensary and who can become a lab tester. People need to be qualified. That's looked at in the statute. Montana residents, they cannot be felons. In the case of the lab testing, which I'm very excited to see, none of this exists in 423, by the way. The lab testing, it allows them to go have the product tested for purity and potency, and those labs are run by scientific directors who have to have either a PhD or a master's in biological or chemical science.
Now, one of the things that Steve does bring up, though, is this question about studies and whether or not it's truly effective. And there haven't been human trials with medical marijuana. I mean, that's true.
In the United States.
In the United States. So the science is still a little kind of on the cutting edge right now. We're still not entirely sure. I mean, you may have gotten relief,
Sure.
but we're not sure if it's a placebo effect or something else. I mean, that's fairly certain, right?
I think what's certain is that we are able to look at other countries' clinical work on what their findings, and they are finding that medical marijuana helps greatly with people with things like cancer, glaucoma, HIV, epilepsy hugely, MS, Crohn's disease, chronic pain, PTSD, things like that. But again, a vote against Senate Bill 182 does not move us any closer to those clinical tests. We need something like 182 that has been thoughtfully put together, has a lot of the rules and regulations that Steve glosses over, claims aren't there, and it creates a fantastic platform for that clinical testing, more regulations to move forward. But if we vote no now, I have been sick, and I am a popular cancer patient. I've been on talking about my diagnosis for a while. I cannot find a provider. So that leaves, we have 93% of the medical marijuana card carrying population who is unable to get access to their medicine. And that, to me, we are compassionate Montanans. That is not compassionate care.
Steve, one of the things that, I mean, I know this is not exact because we're talking about medical marijuana. We're not talking about full recreational legalization like they have in Colorado. But Colorado is an interesting case study. Just in February, Boston Globe, quote, the consensus among several top state officials is that there have been no widely felt negative effects on the state since marijuana became legal, and a crop of retail stores, cultivation facilities, and manufacturers sprung up from Aurora to Telluride. The facilities in Colorado are clean. They're nice facilities. I'm not sure how legalizing marijuana, and even if there are dispensaries on corners, it would be any different from a CVS. So why is this a particular problem?
Okay, so if you take the studies that they do, and they ask a lot of different studies every year, one of them is simply, have you used marijuana in the last 30 days, and what's your age bracket? And they've been doing that year after year since they legalized it. The amount of usage of marijuana in Colorado has doubled in all age brackets. My age bracket, your age bracket, high schoolers, and so forth. Now what that does is that you've got these people on the green stuff, right, marijuana. And it's not medicine as far as this. This is just recreational use, all right, because they have all the access to it now. And it's looked at no worse than alcohol, right? Yeah, no big deal. Let's get into it. Let's have some fun. We're giving the wrong signal to our children. It kills ambition. It hurts their memory short term. It burns their lungs. There's all sorts of issues with it.
But the two most addictive substances, alcohol and tobacco, are completely legal, and we've got about a minute left. I mean, why the big deal about marijuana when those are far worse effects on our society
David,
than marijuana
you
usage?
take alcohol, Kate can take the other one, I'll take marijuana. We don't need another vice on our books, okay? We don't need another thing to derail our families. So we're not into recreational use and habitual addictive type drugs. What I did like, the other problem is, once you've doubled the usage, right, there's 300% chance greater that you're going to use the white stuff, ecstasy, heroin, meth, cocaine, if you're on the green stuff. We went to a narcotics officers meeting here, 150 of them. They said every time they do a bust on the white stuff, there's green stuff laying around. So I'm not sure it's a gateway drug with it makes you go up, but the guy selling the green stuff a lot of times is also selling the white stuff, and that's the problem. So we want less white stuff, no meth, all that stuff, and just have a healthy community. And we want to, Safe Montana wants to come together with Kate, the Montana Cannabis Industry Association. They're trying to figure out who they want to be. They don't know if they want to be recreation or if they want to be medical marijuana within their own ranks. They need to come to the legislative session 17 and carve out a good quality bill that will do all the things that she wants as well as what I want.
About a 30-second response.
Sure. The focus isn't on the white stuff, the greens, the focus is on sick Montanans today. Getting them access, reasonable access, safe access to the medication that we need. I don't think of this as a gateway drug. There is not proof against that. This is an exit drug. It gets people off of opiates. It gets people off. There are 6 medications that I take right now that could be wiped out by using medical marijuana. And I think people need to understand that 182 is a step in the right direction for compassionate care for Montanans. And Senate Bill 423 that we have now is so ineffective that it's hurting people like me.
Well, this has been a lively and wonderful debate. Thank you both for coming, and the voters will get to have their say in November, and we'll see you then. Next time on Face the State.
You've been watching Face the State, a presentation of MTN, the Montana Television Network.